Hello and welcome to KamenRider Blackman. And today it's finally here, the first day of KamenRider W month. That's right. I've been meaning to do this show for such a long time now, and now it's finally here. But before doing anything KamenRider W, let's go over the schedule. Now, because I didn't get to reviewing the show since I've been trying to get the hang of my new tablet, which I'm using as a camera, and so I can learn how to edit and record on here. Today we will not be looking at the show. Instead, today we will be looking at the KamenRider X KamenRider W and Decade Movie War 2010 movie. And so, next week, starting off this Sunday, September 6th, then we will be reviewing the show. And what a coincidence! September 6th is also the mark of our 2-year anniversary here at KamenRider Blackman. And so, after the 6th, it will be the week of the 13th where we will look at the A to Z movie. And on the week of the 20th, we will be looking at the KamenRider Axel movie. And on the week of the 27th, last week of September, then we will be looking at the KamenRider Eternal movie. So with that said, that's our schedule for the next few weeks. So let's kick off W month with the Begins Night, KamenRider X KamenRider W and Decade Movie War 2010. I should say something first about the early KamenRider team-ups, because this is one of them. Yeah, for the early KamenRider team-ups where the past season and the current running season join together for one movie, it's done differently. Let's see here. It starts off where one of the two both have their own separate stories, and they both go one at a time. Then towards the latter half, they both, in an obligatory way, team up together to take down some big monster or whatever. Why they did it like that at first, I don't understand, because it's basically like watching two movies at the same time. Then at the end, they remember, oh wait, this is a team up with two of the title characters. Here you go. Yeah, kind of makes no sense how to have it like that. But this movie starts off with the W portion. And I must say, I do enjoy the W portion. It's good. And it sheds light on, one, this movie is canon. And it sheds light on a couple of details and aspects from the show. One of those aspects being the death of Tsukichi Narumi, Shotaro's former boss. Now, Shotaro, before becoming a detective on his own, he was an apprentice to Shokichi Narumi. And they both had a job given to them by someone who we'll talk about a bit later, to go into a Gaia memory factory to rescue an amnesiac boy who's been creating Gaia memories. That amnesiac boy was, of course, Philip. But before we get to that, Shokichi tasks Shotaro with staying out of sight and just to stay in place so that he doesn't screw up anything. And we get to see Shokichi pull out the Lost Driver, and weirdly enough, the show actually titles it The Lost Driver, and he transforms into KamenRider Skull. So let's talk about his suit. His suit, it's pretty not bad. It's quite hard-boiled. Not to mention, it also comes with a hat, and I'm not kidding. Like, he takes off the hat, transforms. Once he's in suit, he puts the hat back on. Because you know what? Yes. Yes. But the suit just looks so solid because of the colors that are part of it. Black, silver, and white. It's not meant to be flashy. It's meant to be kind of dark. It's meant to be brooding because hard boiled. And while we're still talking about Skull, his civilian clothes look cold too. Dude just needs to wear black and white and that hat just to say that he is a badass and potentially a smooth criminal. And so, I'm just pulling stuff out now. So, one of the biggest points about the W half is Shotaro getting closure and he just wants words. The point of the W half is not only show backstory for Shotaro and Philip, but for Shotaro to try to get closure on Shokichi's death, to which they do both, because of the dopant of the movie, they do end up seeing a ghost of Shokichi that transforms in the Kamen Rider Skull. And it attacks W, and in the midst of the battle, Philip just says it out loud that there's no way that this is Narumi because he died, with Akiko right there present to hear them. To which I'm actually quite fine and I'm all right with how it's done there. Since in show, Shoto honestly couldn't do it. So having Philip just rip off the band-aid, I'm quite fine with. But yeah, Akiko learns that her dad died, so this is clearly a ghost. But this ghost of Skull really he really goes in on Shotaro, just making him so guilty of Narumi's death. That one line he particularly says is, "Are you going to kill me again? Or are you going to get me killed again?" Basically, letting Shotaro believe that it's his fault that his boss died. And he feels that way for a little bit until he and Philip Shotaro travels to the Gaia Memory Factory where they met, and Philip follows him, and they reveal basically how they met. Like, Shokichi and Shotaro are both tasked with an unknown figure that I will discuss in the show to go to this factory to rescue Philip, who is an amnesiac and has been creating Gaia memories. When Shotaro and Philip first meet, for one, Philip doesn't give a shit about anything or anyone. He just wants to see the power that Gaia memories create. And they both basically throw a couple of realistic examples to counter each other's words. Example being, well, how do I put this? Basically, imagine if someone is arguing with someone who creates guns, and that person saying, okay, do you blame the person who created the gun or the person who uses the gun? Basically something like that. And somehow, some way, Shotaro ends up pushing Philip into this Gaia tower that teleports him down somewhere where everyone can see him. Shokichi, basically gets mad at Shotaro for not staying his post, because Shotaro actually wanted to do that just to be praised by his boss. While he did have good intention, trying to just keep him safe while the boss does the dirty work, yeah, he still screwed up. Oh, and an interesting fact, when Shokichi meets Philip in the planet bookshelves, I guess through the Gaia Tower, he convinces him of leaving and seeing the outside world, saying that's rather interesting. And how Philip got his name is that Shokichi basically gave him the name of, I'm looking this up right now. Okay, sorry, I gotta read this, just so I can understand. Philip is named after a fictional character named Philip Monroe, and now I'm about to read what that is, or who Philip Monroe is. Philip Monroe is a fictional character created by Raymond Chandler. Alright, let's see here. It's basically a fictional detective, and yeah, it's basically it. Philip Monroe is a fictional detective. And of course, if you've seen the first episode, you know how the next part goes. There are minions there. Shokichi gets shot. And Philip shows Shotaro a case where the Gaia memories for W are there. And they both transform into W. Not going to talk about the suit here. I'm going to save that for the review next week. And not only do they transform into W for the first time, specifically Cyclone Joker, but they also transform into Fang Joker, which I will also touch light on in the show. But yeah, through all the danger and trouble they both manage to escape. And when Shotaro faces the ghosts of Skull again, he stands up to the ghost, telling him, "Back off. I'm going to do my job because this is what the boss trained me to do. This is what he would have wanted. This is what he would have wanted me to do. Protect the client and finish the job." And that does the trick, honestly, against the ghost. And the Dopon is apparently, it was supposed to be, well, at first they all thought it was a Dopon about death, but it turns out it was a dummy Dopon. But yeah, once the dummy Dopon is exposed, the W goes after it, and the Taboo, Nazca, and Clay Doll Dopon gang up on W to support the dummy Dopon as he escapes. Once W, of course, gets out of that gang up, they both, of course, chase him into, well, they're out of the movie for a bit because now we're on to the decade portion. And yeah, the decade portion. Okay. The decade portion. It's... Okay, let me be real right now. And let me just say, the decade portion of this movie basically explains why I'm not a big fan of Decade. He's inexplicably overpowered, and not in a way that it's cool. He's overpowered in a way of what the actual hell. And it's just, yeah. Like, he's overpowered in a way that it's a real, just, yeah. Basically, yeah, I don't like Decade because he's inexplicably overpowered. And how the Decade portion even starts is that, well, the first person he beats is Skyrider while in the air. Literally, Skyrider is in the air, and Decade just rider kicks him while Skyrider is literally doing whatnot in the air. Then after that, he beats Super One and Kabuto because for some odd reason, Decade also has Clock Up. Not only that, the most ridiculous one of all is when KamenRider J tries to beat Decade, and Decade straight up pulls out the side basher. Okay, a secondary rider vehicle, and it just makes no legit sense at all. And Decade's just going out and about beating all the other riders just because they said I was going to be the destroyer of worlds. So screw it. I'm going to be the destroyer of worlds. Bleh. It's just, there's no reason for him to be doing that. Oh, what do you know? Decade beating all of the riders and whatnot, it helps out. Super Shocker. Another alliteration of Shocker. Give me a moment because I want to see if I use the word alliteration right. Yeah, my wrong choice of words aside, my point is there is yet another version of Shocker, Super Shocker, and it's filled with, I don't know, a couple of Showa villains because, I don't know, Honoré Takeda, whatever. And it's just, and guess what? With Decade beating all of the writers, this is totally helpful for Super Shocker, so that then they could beat Decade. I'm not gonna lie right now, consider the fact that how overpowered Tsukasa is. Once he faces one of the actual bad guys in this show, it looks like he had a little bit of trouble at first until W came. And it makes me go, what the full? Dude took down KamenRider J like it was nothing. Something like a giant elephant, which does show up, should not be a problem for him. Just know. And of course, this is something that just hit my mind. A.R. Yusuke, not the character, but the fact that he goes Ultimate Kuga and he has the black eyes while still sane. Like, whoever wrote this portion has not seen Kuga to not know that they've completely missed the point of the black eyes. The black eyes, it's just so badly written. Like, you want to know what's the point of the black eyes? The point is that you completely lose your mind and choose to be a monster. This guy, however, and it's from deep within, this guy, however, is just using it as a last resort because why the hell not? Whoever wrote this show clearly didn't watch Kuga. And of course, A.R. Kuga dies, and there are no writers left, and then blah blah blah, KamenRider Kivala. Let's just talk about her suit because it's not irritating. But yeah, KamenRider Kivala. Meh, not bad. Being a completely honest right now, this is... Yeah, I'm right. This suit's not bad. I like the colors. You don't really see white and purple together. Looks nice. Meh. Alright. Suit looks good. And guess what else? KamenRider Kivala is the one to beat Decade. All it took was her stabbing him in the driver. As if anyone else hadn't had tried that. Like, Ryuki and Blade were seen in this movie. And they have swords. And yet they got beaten by him. And yet Kivala just stabbed him. And then just, oh my god. And you want to know Tsukasa's reason? I think I've already said before Tsukasa's reasoning for beating all the writers, so that he could remember them. And I don't even know why I tried. He had no reason to try to kill all of them. He had legitimately no reason. And then Tsukasa comes back to life through bullshit. No, I take that back. Tsukasa came back to life through bullshit and pictures. And then Super Shocker comes, blah, blah, blah. I hate the Decade portion. It's stupid. It makes no sense. I don't like the Decade portion at all. I don't like the Decade portion at all. it makes me think that if Tsukasa was to fight any of Super Shocker by himself, he would have he would have an issue with it. But once the fighting the other riders, it's no problem. I don't like it. I don't like the decade portion, and I'm pretty sure I also don't like decade, but I already knew that fact. Oh yeah, that's right. An AR version of Tackle from Stronger is in this movie. I don't know why. She hangs around Tsukasa most of the time just to show that he would be a pretty crappy boyfriend or whatever. I don't I don't know, and I don't care. But oh yeah, the team up finally with W and Decade. Once again, in an obligatory way, they just meet up together and then they go fight this giant elephant monster or whatever. Then it does whatever. And this is the first time, or at least, yeah, the first time where we see Kamen Rider Joker, which will be seen again in A to Z, and Kamen Rider Cyclone, which is more prevalent in the manga. Well, in the mangas, plural. But at least how it looks, for one, both Kamen Rider Cyclone and Kamen Rider Joker, they're both wearing W drivers, and it looks like their names are Cyclone and Joker. But the point is, Kamen Rider Cyclone and Joker are W's final form ride that Decade accesses, and they beat the monster of the movie that way. And after Decade leaves, well, no, before Decade leaves, he gives Shotaro a Kamen Rider Skull card, which he just so happened to have. And then Shotaro, Philip, and Akiko meet Kamen Rider Skull from an alternate dimension, where Skull says, "You look like a fine detective. Keep at it." And Shotaro finally gets his closure on the matter. Once again, I don't like the Decade portion because it's stupid and makes no sense, but I like the W portion because I did manage to feel at the scenes where Shotaro felt guilty and everything. Like, if I was to grade this whole movie, I'd say C or C minus or a D. I'm not going to go as far as saying an F because like I said, I do like the... Oh, I got a phone call. No, it's a scam call. Anywho, where was I? Oh, yeah. I like the W portion. I like what I see from Shotaro and everyone. I just like... The W portion's just more entertaining because of how personal it is. And Shotaro soon gets over his guilt. And that's about it, really. Whew! Finally, now that I finally have got done the W portion, now I can get to reviewing the show. See you guys then.